It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. What a bizarre weekend we just had. The defeated former guy held a big rally down in Texas. Basically, I'm going to go with this was designed to honor his hero, Adolf Hitler, because he held the rally on the day. I don't want to use anniversary. I don't want to use celebration, memorial. I'm not quite sure. The 89th year from the day that Adolf Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany. That date, January 30th, 1933, when he was named Chancellor of Germany. Trump had his little cult rally, whatever you want to call that. Hate Fest 2022, however you want to put it, that's what they had. And it's interesting that that day was chosen. Coincidence? I think not. But evidently Texas, all about oil and guns. At least that's what he said. If you listen to the spiel, the sky is falling, the end of the world is coming, democracy is holding him accountable. I got to tell you, it's one of these weird, as I'm watching him go about how inflation, the economy's bad, all the store shelves are empty. He actually said, you can't buy anything. And I'm going, wait a second, what store are you in? I'm not quite sure which stores you're shopping in, but this idea that all the stores are empty is ludicrous. And then he went on this bizarre kind of, I can't even publish my book. I can't find paper. I can't find ink. I can't find glue. But he says, buy my book. And you go, hold on a second. There are a lot of people with a lot of stuff there. If it's so bad, what are they doing with all this stuff? It's this weird, competing, bizarre world that things are doing okay. These are people who are doing well. And then saying, no, everything's horrible. The sky is falling. Now, the speech, I got to tell you, probably one of the most divisive, one of the most dangerous, one of the most incendiary. As my friend Will Bunch said, one of the most dangerous speeches in America's history. Basically calling for all-out mayhem in the event that our justice system have the audacity, the nerve, the unmitigated gall to hold him accountable and to prevent him from going to jail. He said that also he wants the White House back. Do you remember, as I do, that it was reported back in 2017, that the White House was a dump? This weekend he said, and in 2024 we're going to take back that beautiful, beautiful house that happens to be white. That is so magnificent, that we all love. We're going to take back the White House. Now, again, this is what he called a dump. Now it's a beautiful, beautiful house that happens to be white, which is bizarre and frightening all on its own. But the thing that got the most attention was the fact that he came out and promised that there were going to be pardons. You listen to everything that he talked about. He did everything but threaten a civil war if he's indicted. Now remember, it's all about him. It's all about him. It's not about the needs of those people in the crowd. It's all about him. He threw the race card in there, of course, have to. And he said, quote, if I run and I win, we will treat those people from January 6th fairly. And if it requires pardons, we will give them pardons. Because they're treated so unfairly. And this is the part that's always been hysterical to me. They're in jail. These are the same people, I guarantee you, at some point, these are people who said, jail's not supposed to be fun. They shouldn't have color TV and swimming pools and workout equipment. It should be bars and misery and bread and water. You know that they were saying that. And now that they're experiencing jail, and it's not the utopia that they had it worked up in their minds, now we're being treated so unfairly. He goes after prosecutors. He calls them radical, racist, vicious prosecutors. Says if they do anything illegal, he hopes there are going to be massive protests in D.C., New York, Atlanta, and elsewhere. And gee, why those three places? Why Washington, D.C.? Oh, yeah, the January 6th the select committee that's investigating, probably going to have him thrown in jail. Oh, yeah, New York with the prosecutors looking into all of his business hijinks. And Atlanta, yeah. Fulton County looking into that phone call with Brad Raffensperger where he said, find me 12,000 votes. Yeah. He went on to say that the elections are corrupt. Not that he's completely corrupt. Because understand, this whole little shindig was all about him. All about if they hold me accountable, all about changing the narrative on him being on the defensive. This is what they do masterfully. This is what he does masterfully. And I think Liz Cheney had probably the smartest comment on this. She said in a tweet, Trump uses language he knows caused the January 6th violence, suggests he'd pardon the January 6th defendants, some of whom have been charged with seditious conspiracy, threatens prosecutors, and admits he was attempting to overturn the election. She goes on to say he'd do it again if given the chance. You go, of course he would do it again. There's no remorse here. There's no I'm sorry. There's only I'm sorry I got caught. There's only I'm sorry that somebody now knows. In the story that broke today, that evidently the National Archives, a lot of the documents that they're turning over are put together with tape. Because evidently he had a habit of tearing things up without realizing that all this stuff has to be archived, that you can't just tear it up and throw it away. And someone actually went and taped it all back together. Because understand, in Trump world, and Trump is the same mentality that my grandfather always said, never write anything down, never record anything, never put anything that can be used against you in a court of law. And that's how the crime syndicate works there. And it's how Trump has evaded prosecution for decades. I think he's been caught up with, though, which is why he is freaking out and why we have this stuff going on. But here's the weird part, and this is the scary part. Because if you look at what went on in Texas this weekend, and then you look at what happened up in Ottawa, Canada, you look at the big truckers rally for freedom. Now, the bizarre part is you can't get a handful of truckers to come together on really anything. You know, for decades, they've been getting screwed at every turn. Cheated out of wages, cheated out of benefits. They're their own boss, so they take on all the risk. Having to deal with abusive dispatchers. You go back into the 80s. The average truck driver wage back in the 80s, in today's dollars, was about 120 grand. Wages in the trucking industry in today's dollars is about 45 grand. So no mass protests, and it's almost the exact same thing in Canada. No mass protests over that. No, can't have that. No. Why would we want to make our lives better? But the government saying, hey, we want you to live. And the best way that we can help protect you to live is to get the vaccine. That is worth thousands of trucks descending on the Capitol, and the nonsense that you saw. Now, what's interesting is that a lot of those folks didn't quite learn all the lessons from January 6th, and they were recording their moments. Not in the same way. But when you see a Confederate flag running through Canada, when you see a Nazi flag running through Canada, you go, what is that for? Well, the racists are among us. And I couldn't help but thinking as I was watching some of the videos and seeing some of the reports coming out of there that we did this. We've exported this kind of right-wing hatred, this kind of fervor. Not that it's not always been there. Don't get me wrong. We've all around the world, you've got these people. You've got hate mongers. You've got people who want to tear things apart. The difference is the Trump era has given those people license to come out of the closet. And what's interesting is you look at a lot of the flags and a lot of the merchandise looks eerily similar to the defeated former guy's merc. It looks eerily similar to the swag that they hand out at these rallies. Which, understand, they showed videos of the vendor area. They didn't seem to be missing anything. The supply chain of horrible Trump regalia didn't seem to be lacking, but there's supply chain issues, stores are empty, economy's horrible. Yeah, crazy. And I look at this convoy and the reports coming out of there of people desecrating the National War Memorial, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, basically harassing police and city workers, and then basically attacking people at a soup kitchen. You go, I don't know, is this the work of the Trump cabal? Most likely, because you've given them license to do this. And I couldn't help, as I was watching both of the events going on over the weekend, I couldn't help but think that, imagine what could be accomplished. Imagine what we could do in this country and around the world if you took the energy, the passion, the power, and you said, you know what? We're going to solve the world's problems. We're going to make lives better. We're not going to tear things apart. My grandfather always used to say, any idiot with a hammer could tear down a house. It takes a craftsman to build one. I saw a lot of idiots with hammers. I saw a lot of idiots with hammers. And it seems like those are the people who are the most energized. Those are the people who want to tear stuff down. And what is it about us that tearing things apart, being negative, that's what gets people together, that's what gets action? And not how can we make lives better, not how can we make a utopian society. I saw a video of a guy, I think it was on Instagram, and he was saying, if we just took the collective knowledge and the energy of all people and we just put it together and moved in the same direction with some direction and actually thought about saving the world's problems, we could have a society run by robots, run by everything, where nobody had to work, and wealth would be distributed equally, and people would be able to live lives. He said we could do that, but we're never going to, because we're too easily divided. And this is the moment that we're in. And we're in these moments because, well, I look at the freedom fighters saying, I don't want to get vaccinated. And I'm almost at the point, and I've kind of been here for a while, where don't. The people who are dying from it are the unvaccinated. For too long, we've been protecting the simple. For too long, we've been protecting the ones who make poor decisions. We've tried to legislate that stuff, which is why the right, the nanny state, because we're taking care of people, because we don't want to see people die. That's what all this is about. And then here's the other part of this. We don't want to die. And this is the part that I think the right struggles with, because we've been told for so long that, I have rights. I got rights. It's my right to do this, that, the other thing. And you go, yeah, you have the right to do what you want to do. You have the right to flail your fists around until they touch the tip of my nose, as Justice Hugo Black said. When your rights infringe on mine, we have a problem. And what the right doesn't understand is that we have rights too. The right to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. You don't have the right to infect people. You don't have the right to be a free rider. You don't have the right to do the things that, well, the right wants to do, because it's their freedom. I don't want to pay the costs associated with people who get COVID. And look, I've said for a long time, capitalism will figure this out. And in Canada, I think the same thing is going to happen at some point. But if we could only marshal all of that energy in a positive direction and move in a direction where maybe we get stuff done, it couldn't be worse. But you look at what Republicans are masterful at: division, dividing us. And on the education front, there's this group called PEN America. They track, attacks on education. They pointed out since January of 2021, there have been 122 education gag order bills that have been introduced or pre-filed in 33 states. And why is that? Because of that theory about race that's, I guess it's critical. And this year it's accelerated. I mean, you've got, in the last 3 weeks alone, 71 bills have been introduced. 71. They say of the ones that are currently live, 84 of them are in K through 12, 38 target higher education, 48 of them have mandatory punishments if you violate. If you're a teacher who says anything about race, we're coming for you. If you're a school district, we find something, we're going to sue you. And you go, what's the purpose of this? Well, the purpose is, for the politicians to be able to get their name in the headlines. That's really what it's about. See, we're fighting those people. And the other part is it's about race. It's about ensuring that we're fighting for white people. And that's a scary thing where we're using education as that anger point. Now understand, in Virginia, they were teaching critical race theory anywhere in Virginia. But boy, you ask somebody from Virginia and they're going to lose their ever-loving flippin' mind. Because Youngkin and the Republicans got them all worked up over something that wasn't happening. And the interesting thing that this Penn organization points out is that a lot of the legislation that's been introduced and that is passing and has been passed, extremely sloppy. Doesn't really have a direction. It's going to cause tons of headaches, tons of lawsuits, going to cost taxpayers, millions of dollars litigating. But it's not about that. It's about the fear. It's about the racism. It's about making sure that we are, divided. And Republicans do that very well, don't they? I mean, they really do. You have to give them credit. They do it really well. But the sad thing is we keep falling for it. And I keep asking the question, when do we stop? When do we stop falling for this? When do we rise up and unite and say no more? That's the question. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of the program, get the podcast. Take the podcast anywhere and all over. Just go to thericksmithshow.com so you can download it if you miss any of the program. Going to take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people come to talk.
It doesn't happen like we think it does. No one rolls the tanks. No armies meet in pitched battle. It happens quietly, little by little. And because so many think it can't happen, it does happen. Little by little, the rules change. It doesn't seem shocking or sudden. And that's the point. Fewer places to vote, longer lines. Don't worry, they say. We're just improving the system. They hope we won't notice the rules are changing because they lost the last election. They hope we just won't care enough to stop them. They believe they can take America away from us, and we won't even notice. We know who they are. We know what they want. The question is, who are we? Do we let them get away with it, or do we fight? Democracy is on the ballot. Vote while your vote still counts. The Lincoln Project is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I got to tell you, the speech, quite interesting. The beginning, is this the beginning of what the right wants? Is this the beginning of that civil war? Because the conversation that came out of that, not good. Nothing positive came out of that speech for the country. For Trump, his loyal followers, I'll bet you they're willing to riot in Atlanta. I'll bet you they're willing to go after the Secretary of State and any prosecutor who dare hold that man accountable for the crimes that he committed. And he did. There's no question about it. We all heard it. The difference is some people just can't hear. And this is where I find it interesting that, there's only 2 Republicans that I can find that had anything to say about it. And Adam Kinzinger was one of them. He said this is an admission and a massively un-American statement. He said it's time for every Republican leader to pick a side, the Constitution or Trump. And this is what I was talking about last week. It's democracy or not. That's all the Democrats have to run on this year. And here to talk about what the speech was and, well, how horrible this could be, I've asked our good friend Fred Wellman to come talk with us. Fred is the co-founder of the Beer Hall Project. Also, I guess a former Republican, too. So maybe we'll get a thought out of him. Fred,
that's true.
Thanks for taking time.
I'm one of those guys. It's great to be back. Appreciate it, Rick.
So walk me through some of this. Did you watch the spiel?
No, I just can't. I watch it. I'll watch it reruns. I'll see the clips of it because just seeing him makes my skin crawl. But obviously, I pay close attention because of our work. Yeah, the whole. I'm a little subtle, aren't I? The thing about the Beer Hall, we found the Beer Hall Project on January 6th. It's my newest organization since you and I last talked. And the concept, really, the whole discussion is great to talk to you about it. It's the idea that January 6th was sort of our Beer Hall putsch. And if you know the history of that moment, that was really just the start of Hitler's ascent to power. Many people thought it was the end, but Hitler had the failed coup. He was tried lightly. He was thrown in prison lightly. He was pardoned, came out. 10 years later, he's the Chancellor of Germany. A month later is the Reichstag fire. A month later is the Enabling Acts. And guess what? Democracy dies in Germany under Hitler as a dictator. So that's kind of why we formed this group, is just to fight back on that very directly. So seeing him on stage, amongst his rabid followers, saying these things that he's going to dangle pardons, it's mafia stuff, right? The idea that he's encouraging ever more violence, even knowing that last time he caused more violence. I think we have to stop pretending this isn't but a deliberate act on his part, and his goal is to undermine our democracy.
Yeah, without question. And interestingly enough, and as I was preparing to talk to you, I came across the little nugget that on the day that he gave that speech was the 89th anniversary of Hitler being named Chancellor of Germany. So,
Yep.
Coincidence? I don't know.
I don't believe in coincidence. It's just, again, and how did Hitler ascend to power? He manipulated the democratic levers of power in the very weak ones in the Weimar Republic of Germany. He used his brown shirts to intimidate people in the streets. This is something there. Intimidate the feet. He spread misinformation. He created enemies of the Jews and the Bolsheviks. There's a playbook to this that Mussolini followed, that Hitler followed, that Putin has followed. I mean, modern strongmen. There's a wonderful book by a woman I just spoke to the other day called Ruth Ben-Ghiat. And Ruth has a wonderful book called Strongmen, where she really lays, I think you've talked to her, Ruth really lays out the idea of how these strongmen, how these autocrats come to power. And there's a playbook, and we see it. I don't know if you saw today, there's a story about how Spalding County, Georgia, a small county in Georgia, the judges there who appoint the election officials met probably illegally in private with no public record of it, and appointed yet another, the fifth Republican to their election board. Their first act was to outlaw Sunday voting. So what's happening is this fight for our democracy that Trump is encouraging, an actual fight, is occurring right now, just as it did in 1930s Germany, where at the street level, there's a fight for our democracy.
And it's at every level. This is the weird part of this, because you brought up the voting thing, and there are 34 pieces of legislation across 19 states that have passed. There are tons more. I mean, they're just an almost an uncountable number. It was banging around.
It was 440, I think, according to the Brennan Center in January. And then, of course, my former home state of Virginia has a GOP a majority in the House. I think they introduced some 10 or 15 bills first week of their legislature, trying to roll back early voting, roll back absentee voting. Virginia is one of the easiest states to vote in the country. Early voting was fantastic. I was able to vote in every election, even when I was out of town for work. And their first act is to roll back a system that works. I mean, if we pretend that this isn't a plan, then it's just that. It's just pretending, and we're going to pay a price for it. And it's
just not voting. And where I was also going is this organization, PEN America. Their job is to promote people writing. They've pointed out that there are a number of states that have moved. What was it? It was just some unreasonable number of. It was 122 educational gag orders in 33 different states. And it's all over critical race theory. It's all over what's being taught in classroom. And it's all about enraging the masses. It's all about getting people all fired up and all bunched up in the panties, so that they sue their school districts, so that they hate their teachers, and that they tear down education. Because in order to have a right-wing movement, you can't have a liberal education. And I don't mean liberal by political liberal, but you can't have a liberal education system where people are critical thinkers. You have to tear it down and teach them just, the basic rote things that they need to absorb and regurgitate. And that has to happen. And look, it's incredible that 12 of these laws in 10 states have already passed. This is the next fight.
I agree, and we posted a meme the other day that I'm fond of. There's a famous quote, true quote from Benito Mussolini that says, "On any given day, at any hour of the day, he knows exactly what's being taught in Italian schools with the fascist education system." It is a classic autocratic playbook to control the education of our children, to breed the next generation of fascists and the leavers and their problems. And there's no way to deny it. I mean, the ridiculousness of these AstroTurf. I saw a great analysis the other day. There was this Mothers for Liberty group, which is totally grassroots, right? Totally grassroots. And they were suing in Tennessee. They literally were so lazy that the suit in Tennessee was from Florida. They didn't even edit out that it was based on Florida teaching guidance. I mean, it's such a fake movement. It's being funded by big dollars on the right side, right-wing side, and the right, far right, to undermine the education market. But Rick, there's always been an attack on public education this is the perfect play for them. They've always attacked public education. They always wanted us as taxpayers to pay for their kids' religious schools. And so by tearing down the public schools, they can do that. Here in Missouri, where I live, I call him the sometime Attorney General of the state, Eric Schmidt, who's really a full-time Senate candidate, has spent his entire time for the last year suing school districts here in the state for mask mandates and dictating what the schools can do. He's not suing the private schools that have mask mandates, just the public schools. Yep. At the same time, there's the thing I want to talk about too is these tip lines. Schmidt did a tip line here so that parents could turn in their schools for mask mandates. And what was Glenn Youngkin's one of his first acts in Virginia? He put in a tip line, and I can't believe it when I say it. The tip line is to turn in schools who are teaching critical race theory and their other progeny. And it's amazing. They're literally turning kids into snitches on their own teachers.
Yeah, and this is where I said every parent should be calling that tip hotline immediately.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, my kid's school is underfunded, class sizes are too big, teachers underpaid. There are lots of problems. We don't have enough extracurricular programs. We don't have enough vocational programs. You're right. We need a tip line, Governor. How about doing this instead of worrying about my kid learning about what actually happened in the past?
It's mind-boggling. Here in Missouri, the Secretary of State, Jay Ashcroft, put out a tweet, I think yesterday, saying 61 school districts in Missouri have closed their schools. This is outrageous freedom. They're closed because they ran out of teachers. There's such an outbreak of Omicron and COVID here. They're not closing because they're trying to control. It's because they literally don't have enough people to include janitors and school monitors to actually manage the school and have it open. And they just don't even care. All they care about is making a political point, and our kids are going to pay the price.
Yeah. Now, when you put out that quote by Mussolini, are you sure it wasn't by Voltaire?
Right? Well, I let me get my guns.
And the reason I wanted to go back to this is
I can't see it, Rick. He blocked me illegally. It's illegal for a member of Congress to block people, but Thomas Massey blocked me a while ago, so I just have to see his stuff secondhand. I still drag him because I'm that kind of a guy.
Just so everyone knows what we're talking about, Kentucky Representative Thomas Massey tweeted a meme with the quote, "To learn who rules over you, simply find out who you're not allowed to criticize." And it's accredited to Voltaire. And it's not. It was some child molesting right-wing crazy guy that actually said that. But he put it out as you mustn't question Fauci and his science, thinking he was a smart guy. Only I've always thought if you're going to use a meme, you should probably do that one step of checking to make sure the person who actually you're claiming said it actually said it. And this is where having a liberal arts education probably would not be a bad thing.
Well, Thomas Massey is the same guy that did that family Christmas photo of his entire 5 kids, to include his probably 8-year-old daughter with automatic weapons strapped across themselves for Christmas to the true, really the true meaning of Christmas.
Wasn't that creepy? I mean, that was really
terrifying.
kind of
It's just bizarre. These guys, all these guys, the way they try to, horn in. There's this guy running out in Arizona who's never served a day, who's constantly doing ads with weapons. It's just weird. As a guy who served 22 years and knows my way around a few weapons, I earned my Ranger tab back in 1993. For God's sake, you see my 101st patch on the wall. I've been around weapons. I was raised by a Marine. My dad taught me how to fire his Maggie, his 357 Magnum, when I was a young child, as a way to respect the weapon. I understand it's a deadly tool. It was never meant to be a lifestyle choice. And so to see these Republicans who have never served a day, who've never carried a weapon in combat, who've never borne a weapon in defense of their nation, to act like they're some sort of patriots defending our nation when they couldn't even step up when they had the opportunity for 20 years of war. I just have I just look down on them. I just admit it freely. It's just pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, if you bought the clothes to go run around in the woods, and then try to claim you're something else, you should have a problem with that. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Fred Wellman. Fred's the co-founder of the Beer Hall Project. We'll get links out on social media how you can check out the work that they're doing. Also, make sure you grab the podcast if you missed any portion of the program. TheRickSmithShow.com is where you get that, and the upcoming Black History Month podcast. We're doing special podcasts just around Black History Month. I've never done that before, so I think you're gonna enjoy that. But Fred, with Black History Month coming up, I listened to the speech that Trump gave, and I got this feeling that the next word that Republicans are going to take over, because I got to give Republicans credit when they latch on to something like the word liberal. They're going to do everything they can do to destroy it. Freedom, they're going to do everything they can do to destroy it. Liberty, everything they can do to destroy it. Now, I think racism is the word that they're grabbing onto, because Trump, evidently anything that you do to Trump is now racist, or anything you do to the folks there in the crowd, somehow anything happening to them is racist. And I'm seeing that as the next battle. Do you agree?
I agree, and you see it in the Supreme Court thing. Where President Biden said during his campaign that his intent was, if he has the opportunity to nominate a very capable and qualified Black woman for the first time in the history of the United States. Don't mind the fact that President Reagan said the same thing about the first time nominating a woman, Sandra Day O'Connor, but they've forgotten that. So that's become a racism thing. And, he's a racist because he doesn't want to consider all the qualified people. It is a very slippery slope. And again, the frustration, I know you share the same frustration as I, is how many of our Democratic peers allow this to happen, right? They do what I call defensive messaging, where they wait for things to happen. I said I sent a tweet out yesterday, I was salty. I've been salty lately. I apologize. There's definitely F-bombs on my Twitter feed. But what I was saying is, you just ignore them. There's an article today by George Packer in the Atlantic, a gutting article about the Afghanistan debacle, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. But what I found, among the many troubling things about how we handled that, but what bothered me the most was that a White House official told one of my fellow veterans advocates that the reason they didn't want to evacuate Afghans to Guam was because it's U.S. territory, and they're very nervous about right-wing backlash to allowing Muslims to settle in Guam, a U.S. territory, which, by the way, is where if you know the history, that's where our Vietnam refugees went, right, to be processed. And I was troubled by the fact that they literally give a crap. That's in their head. No, you're absolutely right. Why do we care? It's like the Supreme Court nomination is the thing. We've got the votes. We don't need it. There's no filibuster, thanks to Mitch. We have the votes. Nominate a capable person, buzz through the freaking process, and move on. And my biggest fear is the Democrats going to get bogged down trying to be bipartisan or worried for even a minute about what Fox News says. We don't care. Power politics means ignoring the naysayers, doing what's right, and moving forward. I live in fear right now. The administration is going to bog down in this long, drawn-out process, nominating a very capable person of color and trying to convince Republicans it's the good thing to do. Yeah. We're not. The best news, thanks to Mitch McConnell, we don't have to. We don't give a damn what the Republicans say. Pick somebody, pass it, put her on the court, move back to voting rights.
No, I'm right there with you. But the problem is the administration, I'm sure, wants to do that. If not for McConnell on the left, Joe Manchin, and Senator Dipsy Doo from Arizona. I think that's part of it. Last question.
I haven't seen them weigh in, but I guess I'm just an optimist. I'm hopeful that they will not foolishly do anything foolish in this.
Yeah, I'm with you. Last line of questioning I got for you. Over the weekend, you saw in Canada, you saw the truckers rally to Ottawa and all the insanity there. Is it we're exporting that kind of hatred, or is that hatred everywhere? And now people feel emboldened because it happened here to come out of the closet.
That's a great question. I've been doing some research. I'm doing this thing called Chapter next month about it's sort of an online class for a month, and I've been researching that. And I believe there's always been these right wing movements. You know, we see it in Hungary, we've seen it in France for years, we've seen it in other countries. So I think they do feel emboldened. I do believe that the global right wing movement. And by the way, Steve Bannon has a hand in this, right? This has been one of his big goals. People forget that he's been very active internationally in the right-wing movements. I don't know if you remember, but he was trying to set up like a right-wing academy basically in Italy, and luckily Italy was tipped off to it and stopped it. So the people who are the evil ones here, we've been dealing with Roger Stones and Paul Manafort and of course Steve Bannon. They've been exporting this hate for a while. So you do see it. The fact they use the same language in Canada and the same evil. I mean, my God, I don't know if you saw that. Two things they did. They decided to take food from a soup kitchen for homeless people because nobody would serve them. And then they parked their trucks and did videos on the tomb of the unknown soldier. How do you call yourself a patriot but defoul and befoul the tomb of the unknown soldiers who serve their country with honor? I've never understood the mentality. It's like Trump saying that McCain wasn't a hero because he was captured.
You're absolutely right.
Understand them.
But it's who these people are, Fred. Fred, I appreciate you taking some time for us. Great talking with you. Hope you'll come back again real soon. Good stuff, man.
I'd love to. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff. Fred Wellman, co-founder of the Beer Hall Project. We'll get links out on social media how you can check that out. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. Listen to the Rick Smith Show.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania, to the auto factories of Michigan, to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, President of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
The good news is America is coming back. More jobs, more building, more of what makes our country great. And more cities and towns, more small businesses, and big corporations are choosing the highly skilled, highly trained members of the IBEW to do the work. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers is committed to doing the job right, on time, and safely. America is making a big comeback, and the IBEW is proud to do our part.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So again, I go back to the big speech. And Atlanta, interesting that he added, as I've been saying, added Atlanta to his, we're going to have to go into the streets in Washington, D.C., New York, and Atlanta, which prompted the Fulton County DA, this Fannie Willis, to ask the FBI for extra security help because, look, now that Trump has put this on the map, I don't know that anything is not off the table. The fact that today you had 6 historically black universities and colleges, with bomb threats, is that coincidence? I think not. And here to share some thoughts on the speech and definitely on all of the voting shenanigans going on across the country, I've asked our good friend Greg Palast to come talk with us. Greg is an investigative reporter, New York Times bestseller. The Best Democracy Money Can Buy is an absolute must-read for anyone who wants to know what happened in 2000 and the playbook going forward. Greg, thanks for taking time for us.
Glad to be with you again, Rick.
So I'm looking at this DA in Fulton County. Yes. I think got something to be worried about. After that speech on the anniversary, the 89th anniversary of Hitler's rise to power, him calling for people to, if they do something in Atlanta, I think people got a lot to be worried about.
Well, he's saying you can commit a crime, you can commit felony mayhem, but if I get elected, I'm going to give you a pardon. And I'm telling you now, in advance, I'm pardoning you before you commit the crime. This has never happened in American history where you effectively say to people, commit a crime, I'll let you off the hook, which is, of course, what he did when he was president. But here he's saying, that's your vote for me. And you get out of jail card free.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Greg. Here's my problem with this. And I think the guy with the eye patch, the Stuart Rhodes was his name, the Proud Boys leader. I think he kind of touched on this when he said we thought he was going to pardon us. We thought we would know there would be nothing coming after us. So he had the chance to blanket pardon all those people. He chose not to in that moment. So,
well, remember, he did pardon a lot of criminals like Roger the Creep Stone. This was serious stuff, perjury, etc. And Paul Manafort. But he didn't pardon the rioters because if you remember, he was facing charges himself, impeachment. And remember, if he was impeached, he did fear. He didn't realize we were going to have a weak sister like Merrick Garland as Attorney General. He had a fear that would be part of a conspiracy interference in election charge. He could face a felony crime. In other words, they could say that you can't say that the president giving out a pardon has committed a crime, but you can say it's what remember, I used to work with the Justice Department. We call it a predicate act of under the racketeering laws. He really had to watch it. That could have literally been used as evidence of criminal intent.
So is this a crime then? What he has done? I mean, he at this moment he can't dole out pardons, but that kind of a quid pro quo, saying, "Look, if you vote for me, you commit a crime. I'll give you a get out of jail free card as long as the crime is defending me." Is that possibly something criminal?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the court is going to have to address, remember that the court's never addressed things like, can a president pardon himself? Can a president pardon crimes in advance of their being committed? Well, then it's not a pardon, it's an indulgence. It's basically a conspiracy to commit a crime and saying you're going to be off the hook. Well, this court's going to have to make the decision: are we a nation of laws or a nation of orange-stained criminals?
Now, that's an interesting question. Looking at this court, I mean, with your expertise in looking at the 6 Republicans in robes, where do you see them coming down on a question like that?
I'm very concerned because I've already seen the commentaries from the right wing that the president's right to pardon is absolute in the Constitution. There's nothing about absolute about anything in the Constitution. These courts find plenty of exceptions. There is a real issue of now we're talking about interference in the election process. And by the way, that's what Fulton County is looking at. Understand that as I've pointed out, because I was investigating this guy, Brad Raffensperger, who's seen as some type of weird, great hero on MSNBC and CNN and 60 Minutes. He's the most vicious right-wing Republican Jim Crow operative in the nation. He's Katherine Harris without the high heels, and he has been promoting these Jim Crow laws in Georgia. What I'm concerned about, he didn't want to go to jail for Donald Trump. Donald Trump said to him, "Find me 12,000 votes."
And as I said from the beginning, Greg, he was willing to do everything he could do to rig the election. He was not going to commit bigger crimes.
Now, remember that there were 29 phone calls. We only have the recording from one. Now I know that not all that Raffensperger started getting nervous and stopped accepting some of the phone calls. I'd like to know how many others were recorded. Those should be made public too. And second, I'd like to know what notes there were, who was on those calls. And that's why the Fulton County prosecutor sought a special grand jury, because Raffensperger's not giving her anything. She said, "Well, what other call? You had 29 calls. How many? Well, what happened in the other 28? I'm not saying nothing. You come and get me, cop, or you better have a warrant." So she said, "Well, okay, I'll get a warrant." Now, one thing you should know, Rick, is that the Republicans and Trump are screaming, "Witch hunt, Democrats!" Well, there are 20 justices in the Superior Court in Georgia. the 20 who are all Republican appointees, or Republicans and Republican appointees, all 20 voted to grant this special grand jury. So this is not, these are Republican judges who said, you better look into this. Now, so part of the problem is that Raffensperger, this great hero, after going out saying, listen to this tape, I'm innocent, Trump's trying to put me in jail, because see, that's what he was worried about. And as I reported to you during the election in 2020 from Georgia, I was in Georgia for, most of that election year. And Raffensperger did eliminate, you have to understand, they disqualified tens of thousands of ballots. They almost pulled it off for Trump. People don't understand. Especially mail-in ballots were disqualified on cockamamie reasons. Someone used red pen instead of a blue pen or black pen. Someone didn't. You have what's called exact match in Georgia. So you signed your name at the bottom or on the outside of the envelope, and you left off your middle initial, but you registered with your middle initial or your, and then you had to include a copy of your ID. There was all these cockamamie grounds for dismissing these ballots. So when he said, find me 11,780 more, you have to understand, he already found the guy like 50 to 100,000 ballots. But at a certain point, you have to begin shredding the ballots. And here's a little known story that people don't know about what happened in Georgia. Raffensperger thought that he had given him the 11,780 votes because they disqualified so many. But what they didn't expect is groups like Rainbow Push, Black Voters Matter Fund, and the Transformative Justice Coalition. You may not know the names of some of these groups like Transformative Justice, but they manned phone banks. And when a ballot was disqualified in Georgia, you have the right as a voter to go in and what they call cure it, fix it. So if you used a black pen, you used a red pen, refill out the ballot in black. You signed your signature in a different way than you registered or on your driver's license, you can re-sign it. And they literally got tens of thousands of people to go into county clerk's offices and fix their ballots, which Raffensperger has told me he was dead shocked that the Democrats it wasn't the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party stood on its, sat on its hands. But the activists went out and got thousands and thousands of voters to go back to the county offices and fix their ballots. And that's what put Biden over the top and ultimately put Ossoff and Warnock, the two Democratic candidates for Senate. That's how they won the primaries, is this tremendous grassroots effort. Raffensperger thought that he had beaten them. But, at a certain point, he's going to do what he can for Trump and for the GOP. But he's not going to go to jail for this guy. And that's where he drew the line. That doesn't make him a hero at all. Makes him a co-conspirator who got cold feet. Jumped out of the getaway car.
There's an interesting way of putting it. I like that. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Greg Palast. Greg's an investigative reporter, journalist, author of The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. If you want to check out the books that he's got, the work that he does, gregpalast.com is the website. We'll get links out on social media on how to do that. Now Raffensperger, as you call him, is bad.
That's his name.
He's bad. We agree. But the sad reality is, in the new Trump world that we live in, he's not bad enough. And you look at across this country, you got people who are running for Secretary of State who are worse than him, and getting huge amounts of money. And you're seeing this kind of movement of extreme Trump loyalists, people who have publicly questioned or disputed the results in 2020, who have supported the big lie, who are now running for those offices. Should we be concerned about that?
Holy crap, we should, because here's the problem. It's not whether you're for Republicans or Democrats or who should be Secretary of State, which is your voting official of your state. It's that we now have people who are committed to fixing elections in advance. It's already bad. When I told you Raffensperger's bad news, he's like Catherine Harris, and we've seen some really bad, ultra-partisan Republican secretaries of state, generally Republicans. There have been bad Democrats too, like Alex Padilla out of California, now senator. That's the advantage of fixing votes. but it's generally been Republicans. And now just being a right-wing, vicious, pro-Jim Crow Republican ain't enough. You have to almost pledge, I will fix the vote for the Donald when he runs again. This is super dangerous stuff. And by the way, let's not forget what else happened in the last couple of days. Yesterday was subpoenaing the 14 GOP operatives who put together phony slates of electors to try to force Mike Pence to recognize fake slates of electors to choose our president.
Right.
And the January 6th committee finally got to what I think is the nub of the problem, is the attempt to steal the election using the 12th Amendment. This is big stuff because they're going to try it in 2024 again. I'm very concerned, and I'm glad that the January 6th Congressional Committee has finally, after a year, has gotten to the nub of the problem. It would be kind of nice if the Justice Department picked it up too. I heard a deputy attorney general today say, we're looking into this. Friends, it's been a year.
Right.
I used to work for the Justice Department. We don't take a year when the evidence is in your face. Your face.
I'm right there with you. But here's the thing, and I keep asking, why wasn't it January 7th when they said, hey, we got two certificates of electors. One's real, one's fraudulent. Why wasn't it that day we arrested people? And I'm with you. I'm frustrated it's taken so long. But what do you say to the people, Greg, who go, look, the wheels of justice were moved slowly. They're trying to get airtight cases. And the other part of we're not getting leaks out of the Justice Department, whereas under the Trump years, it was a sieve. There were people leaking stuff left and right. So my friends who have spent time in the Justice Department have said, look, if there are no leaks, that means everybody's on board and they're moving in a direction. And whoever their target is should be fearful. Is that accurate?
I think that there's something to that. In other words, silence can be very good. It means that there's no internal, like you said, that there is no internal dissension, that people think that there are real crimes, and so they're being very tight about how they're operating these things. I'm just worried that if you wait more than a year on an investigation, also, we do have to be concerned about statute of limitations too. You can't let this go forever. Second, you've got to begin. They should be hauling some people in and also saying you're targets of investigation. I think we need special grand juries at the federal level, just like we're getting in Georgia, out of Washington. I'm just very concerned that we're heading into, if people don't understand what the issue, let me just take 2 seconds to explain what the issue is. Okay, the plan was done, Donald Trump got a letter from John Eastman, one of his attorneys, saying you don't have to leave office, Donald, if you use the 12th Amendment,
right.
Which is not something people have any idea even what the hell that is in America these days. The 12th Amendment says if there's a dispute over who are the electors to the Electoral College, you have a vote in Congress, and it's the House of Representatives will then pick the president, not the Electoral College, which is bad enough. But if you have the House do it, well, no, it ain't anti-Pelosi, Nancy will not be picking your president. Rather, it's one state, one vote. West Virginia and Wyoming get the same vote as California and New York. One state, one vote. You have a majority of delegations are Republican controlled. It's not the majority of the electorate, far, far from it. But imagine one state, one vote choosing our president. Well, Trump's good as inaugurated
right.
if we end up.
And he said in Allentown he was hoping to get to that point. So you're spot on this. So the question that I have is, since voting rights seems to be, on life support, or if not dead already, they're talking about this Electoral Count Act and amending this and doing an overall, so that what you're saying can't happen. Is that better than nothing? Is that a way forward? Or is that just window dressing?
No, it's not better than nothing. I'll tell you why. The big problem is not the Electoral Count Act. That's baloney. That's a Mitch McConnell that's a magic trick by Mitch McConnell saying, "Oh, well, I'm doing vote reform. We'll repeal the Electoral Count Act." That's the Electoral Count Act's not the problem. It's the 12th Amendment to the Constitution. and which was used whether you like Andrew Jackson or not, he was screwed out of the presidency. He won the popular vote and the electoral vote. And, they engineered a controversy, and the states ended up voting for John Quincy Adams. And so we've had an election stolen through the 12th Amendment before, and it could happen again. So it's about being diligent.
Right.
And it's about also making sure that when people put up these phony slates, that they know that there's a price to putting up a fake slate. You can't just steal the presidency under the 12th Amendment and make an attempt to steal the presidency and not end up with charges of conspiracy to interfere in a federal election. And that's what it is. It's a crime.
And we should be holding them accountable, throwing the bums in jail. I want perp walks. I'm with you. Should have happened already, but I'm hoping very soon, and I'm told very soon it's going to happen. But Greg, I appreciate you sharing some thoughts and some time with us. As always, great stuff. Thanks so much, my friend.
You're very welcome. See you at gregpalace.com. Bye.
There you go, our good friend Greg Palast. Make sure you check out the work that he does, gregpalast.com. As he said, that's the website. We'll get links out on social media. You missed any part of the interview? The podcast. Get the podcast at thericksmithshow.com. Right back after this.